Thrown against the car, handcuffed, and that's what happened last night.
The police kicked in the door, shot him twice in the chest, and he died.
Before you knew it, we had 500 families. We had over 100 volunteers calling us. We were on the phone constantly.
And I can't get it. And I got one police department telling me they don't know who's in charge. I got another police department here. Everybody's got a gun, and nobody knows who's in charge. Did anybody figure out who's in charge yet? Is there anybody in charge here? Any police officer in charge? Are you in charge? I can't find anybody in charge. That's the problem.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. My name is Brian Powers, and this is NJRR Live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. We come to you and we bring you the world of grassroots activism. We talk about social justice issues, from labor, police brutality, and economic issues, what our stupid government is doing. But we try to focus on grassroots activism, and that means working class people doing stuff. One of the things working class people do is they bring you Revolution Radio. They do it by going to www.njrevolutionradio.com and making a contribution, or even becoming a member of our editorial board. That editorial board has been featured on pretty much every program since we started this thing, and we've put together movie reviews, panels. We've talked about all the issues that bring you art and activism, which is the goal of Revolution Radio. So again, that's www.njrevolutionradio.com. Check us out, and please, chip in, because that's how it's happening. And I'm excited to talk about something that I talk about often. And if you've been paying attention to Revolution Radio, in any part, you've probably heard me mention 15 Now, or organizing for the minimum wage, when I talk about, my activism and my experiences. And, the reason for that is it was because it was a very transformative time for me personally. The $15 an hour minimum wage movement made me an activist, really. And we're going to get a lot into that later on. But I think at the core of a lot of issues that we have, whether it be these especially these economic issues, these worker justice issues. And I was on the IDAVOX report the other night and talking about what should the minimum wage be. And at this point, I'm so beyond a wage system that I don't even think about what the minimum wage should be anymore, because I just see the whole system as a means to failure. And an economic system designed for failure is one that's based in hourly wages. And I just don't see it as an issue for myself personally anymore. Although, and that's odd, because it was just so much a passion of mine. So we're going to talk about that tonight. At the root of these issues, though, is respect for workers, and trying to get people to respect workers, coming now from a more populated area to a much less populated area in a more rural environment, has given me a chance to, use some of my favorite tricks, but even take a little bit more joy, really, in doing these organizing things that I've done for years and did in New Jersey as well. But, we think of, as activists, changing laws or protesting or leading strikes or stuff like that. But respecting workers can be just as simple as, being nice to a cashier, or even being nice to customer service representatives. I had an issue with the DMV. And as anybody knows, the DMV has never been one for customer service reputation. And in the time of COVID, the way the DMVs are being managed, not just in New Jersey, my former state, but in other states, is atrocious. It's unbelievable to think that they're actually requiring people in the middle of a pandemic to go to a DMV to do things like renew a driver's license or register vehicles. But they are. I mean, they are. People have been agitated, and as everybody knows, these past couple of years have raised everybody's stress levels, and the DMV clerks bear the brunt of it. I see a lot of posts on Facebook and social media complaining about, how the customer service agents were rude to them, didn't understand them, didn't help them. I wonder how often you've tried just being really nice to them and thanking them for their hard work and telling them that they appreciate maybe that they deal with a lot of shit every day, and that that because you used to be a customer service agent, or you've talked to them, or you have friends that are some, and that they deal with too much shit during the day that they're not quite responsible for. Being a customer service representative is like being any other tool of capitalism, which we all are or have been. You have to sit at a desk and read from a script and do exactly what you're told. And if you don't get to eat anymore. And given that choice, these people have chosen the career, maybe not chosen even, they're in the career. They may not even want to be in the career of customer service agent. And they're going to talk to you about your overcharged credit card or your lost ID or whatever the hell your problem is in life. And they got to fix it for you. And that's how they make their living. And you're yelling at them as if they created these stupid policies or wrote that stupid script. And I think we all need to take a step back and maybe just try being really nice to them. And even if we're having a bad day, try and make their day better. When I was really nice to this customer service agent, I could tell they kind of anticipated me being frustrated with something. I could hear in their voice that they were thankful that I was, I knocked over the army guy. They were thankful that I was nice to them. You could hear in their voice the relief that somebody wasn't fucking yelling at them. Yes, you didn't fucking charge my credit card and I want my 99 cents back. It's not having somebody attack them actually was a relief to them. That's how shitty their days are most days. And so I'm encouraging everybody, because all these issues that we're going to go over tonight, whether it be a minimum wage or some of the workers' rights laws that are going through, or organizing on the job, it all starts with that fabric of society that we can contribute to. And, my hope is that, when I pass that along to that customer service agent, and when I tell you this story here tonight, is that we all start doing it. And those kinds of actions, if you're a Marxist, I don't know if you're of other thought, because I'm a Marxist, but if you're a Marxist, it's those kinds of actions which actually lead to a better society, higher minimum wages, if that's what you want, or better working standards for people. Those simple little everyday interactions are what grow a society. So I'm going to bring in a longtime comrade and a guy that hadn't just helped me with the minimum wage effort, but was a union brother of mine at IBEW Local 827 in New Jersey, who worked for Big Red back in the day, Verizon. And Pat Fahey is also a member of our editorial board and spent some time organizing on the minimum wage with me, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But how you doing out there in New Mexico, Pat?
I'm all right. It's nice out here today. It was very windy yesterday, like really windy. But today's
where you're at is a lot of flat land, right? You're kind of past the mountains.
Well, a lot of high desert. It's like 4,500 feet. So, but yeah, it gets, sometimes the wind just gets like wild, man. And it's cold too. So cold and fast.
Yeah, that's what you think of the desert. I thought when you told me you're going to New Mexico, I think mostly hot weather, but
it is hot. I mean, it's hot too, but it's the weather's very it's kind of volatile, the weather, really. You don't know what's going to happen, actually. So
that's what it's like up here in Maine too. There's an expression that if you don't like the weather in Maine, just give it a few minutes and it'll change. And
it's kind of like that here too.
It's true, man. Like, I'll kind of go outside and then I'll literally be inside. It feels like I'll make a sandwich or maybe make a cup of coffee, sit down for it, and I'll get back up and the temperature moves 20 or 30 degrees on that, within an hour sometimes. It does happen. It's not like Jersey didn't do that. I wasn't used to that in New Jersey, but yeah, man. So
more moderate, yeah.
Right. So I was telling you before the show, I'm sitting here patiently waiting, and if anybody hears me on the show all of a sudden scream, woo, it's because I am anticipating another Powers in the world. Or I'm sorry, this one has a different last name, but my sister is being induced into labor as we speak, and I'm waiting for a little young Irishman to be born into this world. If he's born today, it's hard not to name. I don't know if they had a name picked out, but they're gonna have to change it to Patrick. I mean, you can't have a kid with Irish blood and be born today. And Pat, is there another name to name that kid? Really? In
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the way you go, right? Unless you want to get complicated about it, you know what I mean? But yeah.
Do you know about your Irish roots at all? Did you ever do like any of the genealogy studies?
My mother's an immigrant. So my mother's an immigrant. So and my grandparents are immigrants. So I'm very like, connected to that. We used to, like, when I was a kid, we used to sit around. My uncle played the accordion. We'd sing the radical Irish songs and stuff like that.
Nice. So you do you know that your family was connected to any like socialist movements in Ireland back in the day?
I don't know that, and I don't think that they really. I don't think
Right.
that they were really, but
So all I know is what I know from the little DNA I sent, Putin and the CIA and everybody my DNA because I wanted to, know where my family.
Yeah, needs that money, man.
Hey, man, listen, and now he knows that I have a relative in Australia, so there you go. I mean, it's all out.
I got one too.
Yeah,
I
do.
To Australia. Yeah, she's radical. She's radical. She's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I had met a guy in Tasmania. His name was Brian Powers. He's an artist. And if actually you Google him, Brian Powers, Australian artist, he kind of does work that looks like H.R. Geiger. But I met him when I was in Australia. I had no idea. Like I was with some buddies. Like, hey, this guy's got the same name as you. Brought me over, met him briefly, whatever, and then moved on with life. And 20 or 30 years later, I was doing that genealogy study, and I did see that somebody did go over there, and I did have somebody land not only in Australia but in the same town that I had met him in. So there's a chance he was, maybe a distant cousin. And all that time was right after there was actually an Irish rebellion against the British around late 1790s or so. And right after there was large migration. A lot of Irish rebels were trying to escape justice from the British sword. And then there was, it was a war-torn area at that part. So there's a lot of refugees and whatnot. And many of the Irish came, including the Powers, came over and settled in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So there is a chance from that kind of all I know about history that my relatives were involved in rebellion against British imperialism. And, since it's St. Paddy's Day, I'm just going to get drunk and tell everybody like it's the truth.
Yeah, I don't break up my Irish nationalism except on St. Patrick's Day, just a little bit. That's all, you know what I mean? So I'm against nationalism, and I don't really like the IRA, but on St. Patrick's Day, I give them a little tip of the hat. That's it. You know what I mean? So
there's a lot of great resistance movements in Irish tradition, and you gotta celebrate something about you.
Like a 600-year struggle over there, so they got a lot of experience. You know what I mean? So,
lots of it. Maybe we should do an episode. Just that would maybe next St. Paddy's Day we should focus on Irish.
Yeah, resistance. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff that went on. Especially around. There's a really good movie series. It's called Rebellion. It's actually not a movie. It's an Irish television show. You can watch it on Netflix, I think. And it tells the story of the Easter Rebellion through these three women's eyes, right? So it's like one of them was like a wealthy socialist, one was a Irish nationalist, and one worked for the British, and she was like a spy. It's a good, and it tells the story of the whole rebellion, but it tells their stories too. It's cool. It's Rebellion. It's on Irish TV.
I wonder if our editorial board member Marilyn is listening right now. Maybe that's next month's movie review, right? We had a horror movie.
It's a 5-part television series, but it's good. It's worth looking at.
I'll take a look.
Reviewing, but it's worth looking at. Yeah.
Well, I'll see if I can take a look. I don't get to, I've been taking in too much corporate media and stuff. I mean, I really need to get something else into my system. It's hard to fall. And up here it's limited, so that's it's been on my, it's been on my basically on my feed, and that's all. Facebook has taken down all the the grassroots activism and all political posts and stuff. So it's really just CNN and stuff like that. You have to dig now. You have to dig even further now to get reporting outside of the corporate media. It's sad. So all I'm seeing today is about the stimulus. And I've just tried to pay attention to the memes. I've been jokingly telling everybody that I'm spending all my money on weed.
Toke it up.
I ain't spending no money on weed. I'm just fucking with people. you got bills
I
to
quick
pay.
filed my taxes from 2020 because I made a lot less in 2020 than I did in 2019. So I did it this weekend. I hope it worked.
I hope everybody gets every penny coming to them. I mean, it's not enough. And I guess the biggest question for me is like, okay, so we have this giant crisis and we're sending everybody money. Why don't we do this all the time? I mean, people haven't had money in this country for, I don't know. We're talking about the $15 hour minimum wage. That's been 10 years. 20, 30, Arif Hassan here on the comment says Ronald Reagan. I mean, bringing up since Ronald Reagan,
at least. Yeah, and trying to make out like this stimulus is going to end poverty for all these children and all these people. Yeah, for 4 months. I mean, what's 4 months of money going to do? After that, they're going to go right back to where they were. So, I mean, it's just a lot of hype. You know what I mean? That's the way they play it. It's a good. I mean, hey, I'm glad people are getting money, but I mean, it's not a long-term thing. You know what I mean? I guess the aid to the states is good too, because the states are hurting because, I mean, Trump administration didn't give them any help that I remember anyway. Not much anyway. So
yeah, I mean, and the other big statistic is we're lifting half of we're cutting child poverty in half. Why not cut it in whole?
Cut it in whole. Yeah.
What the fuck? You cut it in half so you left half of them in poverty and gave yourself a pat on the back. How do you celebrate taking half of children out of poverty? How is that a victory?
That's just a short term.
Wait, let me see. Let me see. Yeah, let me see if I got out of poverty. I'm still in poverty, but at least we got half. I mean, and the child poverty levels are like $27,000 a year. You could be. I mean, you didn't reduce child poverty by half. You might have reduced it by 10 or 20% when you actually figure what living in poverty is.
And to roll into like the next topic, in 45 of 50 states, the median wage is below a living wage. In 45 of 50 states, including New York and California, which are the biggest states. And it's like 20,000 below. So there's like 70% of the people probably in New York and California that don't make, a living wage. So in the richest country ever in history of the planet.
Hashtag my stimmy weed. Most weed jobs or union jobs, UFCW has been doing a good organizing push into the cannabis industry. So, spending your money on some stimmy weed. Hashtag my stimmy weed. I'd love to. I'm checking that out. Go to the store. I got my stimmy. Where's my stimmy weed here? My stimmy. This is my actual stimmy weed. I posted a picture online, but I was at work, so I was processing stuff. That wasn't actually my stimmy weed for those of you. This is my stimmy weed. Here's wedding cake.
Nice. Looks beautiful.
Oh yeah, the medical.
Look at that.
Camera.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Good
That's a
focus.
good camera right there. Nice
camera there.
Oh yeah.
Focus.
Hold on, it's focusing on me. There we go. But yeah, so that's some wedding cake there. And then I got myself. Oh, where is it?
Wedding cake. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it's great for
popular brand.
Man. Oh, that stuff calms me the hell down. And then I got some Mendo Breath. What is this? That's the concentrates right there.
That's the real knock you out stuff.
Yeah, I'll take that after the show. If I do that during the show, I'll be incoherent and we won't be able to get much out. I'll forget everything mid sentence. But so I did get that's my stimmy weed, and I do think that people should. Be smart with it, and everybody's got their own bills and their own financial situation. But I can't imagine, and I've been poor myself plenty of my life, so I know what it's like getting a $1,400 check and not having a few bucks to do something nice for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you've been shut in and you really wanted like $40 piece of
anyway, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Well, yeah, man. Take $100 and blow it on something stupid, man. Have some fun, do something. I mean, I think part of, if this it's there and I think it's pathetic and we were promised $2,000 and we should probably be getting $2,000 a month, as a universal basic income.
They promised us $1,400, not $2,000.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
That's just what the billboard said. The billboard said 2,000, but that wasn't what it really meant. You know what I mean? So
I'm trying to be on the bright
then,
side, though.
everybody in the media says, "Oh yeah, well they said 2,000, but that was minus the 600." Oh yeah, that's what they said. That's what they said. That's what they said. That's what they said. Of course.
Yeah, over and over. But I am trying to look. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to be positive. I'm saying, just use it as a psychological boost. If anything else,
it's a good
go
thing.
out and live a little
money
for
we
that.
get, we'll take. Shit. We deserve it all. We deserve all. We deserve all the wealth that we create in society. So
pay your sex workers. Pay your sex workers. Get the expensive porn. Get the expensive stuff. I mean, we're all still mostly shut in, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, sex work is work. Pay for your.
I actually got my first. I got my first vaccine blast last week, so I got to get one more in April, and I'll be good.
All right, we got Jimmy. Here we go. What is he talking about? Journalist David Slade actually wrote, "The money will be a lifeline and rare chance to get their finances back on solid ground. $1,400 doesn't get anyone on solid financial ground. No,
absolutely, Jimmy.
If it gets you on solid financial ground, you were pretty close already.
Right. I mean,
that's the thing. And to really get, and why do we want to just get back on financial solid ground? Why don't we stay on it? Why don't we not do the same shit we were doing? And honestly, everything else the administration is doing looks like the Obama administration at the same time. So we'll see how it pans out long term. But I think it's up to the revolutionary community to keep the conversation going into universal basic income or something else, because I do think the $1,400 will help. I don't think it's nothing. I'm not going to cough at it. I think the $600 was a joke. I still think the $1,400 isn't what they're making it out to be. But like I said, I wasn't thinking about going out and buying some good weed with only 600, but with 1,400,
that's a different story.
Hashtag my stimmy weed. Let me see your stimmy weed. I can't wait to see it.
Sounds like a plan.
There you go. So let's play a little commercial music here for a second while I read our commercial, because what is this? Oh, I got some Jamaican stuff queued up. That isn't Irish music, is it? Nah.
You ever heard that Black 47 song that morphs the reggae into the Irish music? It's pretty cool.
Yes. This isn't that.
They were great.
This is something else because I hit the wrong button. Yeah, we'll go with it.
That's
Happy
right.
St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
They're all colonies. Jamaica, Irish colonies. Saying, a lot of similarities. You know what I mean? So.
Thanks for trying. This NJR Live was brought to you by our editorial board. As I was saying at the beginning of the show, we don't produce these alone. It takes a lot to make an NJR Live. It takes a lot to make a special report, and it takes a lot to do an iDevox report. And all these things are brought to you by a group of people that chip in a few bucks every month and meet and give ideas and produce shows and segments and write and do all kinds of stuff. And so if you want to be a part of what you see here, if you want to contribute, go to www.njrevolutionradio.com. There's a tab for donate right there. You can chip in, or you can go to the join our editorial board tab, check us out, and sign up. You get to meet with us, meet with our staff, and kick around ideas. It's the backstage, behind the scenes work that I think is really starting to get exciting, and the productions coming out of it, I think they're great. So come on board if you get a chance. I also need to tell my audience that Monday at 8 p.m. So we normally broadcast Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. But next week, we're having a special episode on Monday night at 8 p.m. with Dr. Letitia Sampson, who runs Great Joy Counseling and is a clinical social worker and a psychologist, as well as Christian Perez. And you know him, of course, as a professor of political science and our conspiracy theory expert. They're going to talk about American political cults. I know that, everybody's talking about QAnon and all these right-wing Trumpers, but political cults are nothing new. Political cults have been around since politics have been around. And so we're going to talk about groups like the LaRouchites. You ever heard of these people? Woo! They got a special brand of crazy going on. And Jimmy Jones considered himself a communist leader. So using politics to drive people a little off the deep end, it happens. It's dangerous and it's real, and we've seen it all repeatedly throughout the history. Going back to Roman, you can read about Roman political cults if you want to do some deep research. So check out Monday night at 8 p.m. and I'll bring in Dr. Letitia Sampson and Modernity and Absurdity podcaster, professor of political science, and conspiracy theory expert Christian Perez to talk about the American political cult. That is Wednesday night at 8 p.m. here on the Revolution Radio Network. I am going to bring in my comrade and another editorial board member, Mariah Painter. How are you, sister?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing
All right.
great.
How you doing, Mariah?
So I talked a little bit, and I wanted to elaborate on my personal experience, and because this issue is important to me from a personal experience, even though I wasn't a low-wage worker when I started out. You know, I've been in poverty, and I've dealt with all those kinds of issues in and out of my life. But I got involved mainly as an organizer, looking, you know, to have some kind of issue, which I thought could drive a larger organizing kind of, you know, deal. General strikes, you know, large scale worker organizing, changing federal laws, you know, getting rid of Taft-Hartley. Those were like the long term things that I was really hoping that minimum wage movement would go. I was also, you know, just really inspired by what I saw in Seattle. They did it in Seattle, and at the time they did it in Seattle, I don't think many people thought it was even realistic. I mean, nobody thought, everybody, there was like $15. That's ridiculous. Why would we pay hamburger flipper $15? And now it's like it's 70% approval rating. Now this is 10 years ago. So, you know, I think that I got involved, one, because I saw an issue that I could latch onto and do a larger scale organizing with, but also, you know, one that I thought could just materially affect people's lives. And it wasn't a nonsense issue to me. The issue wasn't secondary. I believe, and I still believe today, that, you know, raising the minimum wage is good for people who work for a living, you know, and for everybody in a society. But that was never the plan when I got into the political realm. And I got into the political realm, in my opinion, probably too early. I was wound up getting kind of involved with some organizations like Working Families. Some of the major labor unions had. I wound up finding a full-time job as a staffer with CWA at the national level for a little while. I wound up with the local. And all of that turned out to be both wonderful growth experiences for me as an organizer and personal and professional development. But it came at the cost of watching my cause get completely stripped away of everything we set out to do with it. And at the end of that campaign, the 15 Now campaign, part of it just kind of fell apart and just decided that we weren't having the impact, and that policy that was getting passed wasn't policy that we really wanted to support. They had put in, you know, these large, you know, the long time for it to phase in, and exceptions for agricultural workers and all this kind of nonsense that we, you know, just weren't going to. But of course, Working Families, now towards the end of this game, Working Families and some of their supporting groups, but it was really Working Families who was the driving force, and Working Families was funded by these major labor unions like SEIU and the CWA. They had no problems, and one of the more horrifying and worst moments of my organizing career was passing by the State House in Trenton, and I was at work, so I couldn't call them a bunch of fuckheads, but I certainly would have had I not been on the clock that day. But they had a press conference out front. There were some Working Families and some other nonprofit bullshit organizations standing there with a couple of business owners and a guy running for Congress, taking credit for the organizing for $15 amount of minimum wage so they could get elected, so they could pump up the politicians. It was a shitty policy that everybody who had ever even wanted to give a shit about stopped supporting because they did such a horrible job of passing the law. Nobody was excited about it. And then I had to sit there and get insulted to my face while other people took a press conference with fucking business owners for a $15 an hour minimum wage. I walked away so disgusted. And it did go downhill from there in my professional career with the union movement. And I found a lot more fraud, a lot more bullshit, and far more disappointing things over time. So there was kind of like this fall off the cliff for the politics of 15 now that I saw personally from the inside. And I think the reason why we don't have a $15 an hour minimum wage today, despite it being obvious that we need something like it, is because it was never taken seriously by the Democratic Party. It was never taken seriously by working families. It was never taken serious by Ana Lilia Mejia. But she is now working for the Department of Labor. She got to be on stage with Phil Murphy when he got reelected. Hetty Rosenstein, anytime Phil Murphy would turn around, you'd see her feet sticking out of his ass. You know, the SEIU, they get cabinet positions and they're in the labor department now. And the organizers, the working class people like myself and so many others, we're still in the working class organizing community. We're still standing outside with signs with 15 or 20 people in the cold trying to get Medicare for all and those kinds of policies. Yet still so many, and Pat, I know you have a lot of research on this and I appreciate that data that you dug up. Still so many people in this country working and living in poverty. To me, it speaks volumes about how poorly our political system works for working people. When you consider that the bailouts for the banks took like 3 days, like whatever it took to, give them trillions of dollars. 10 fucking years. 10 fucking years.
They set up that bank thing after the 2008, whatever we want to call it, recession. They set up this like pipeline to make it really easy to pump money right into the Fed to give to the banks. It's like a special law they did. I'm not sure what it was called, but I was reading about it back, when they did the original stimulus. So it was already set. All they had to do was like click the switch, and 500 billion, which became 5 trillion with what leverage is sitting there for the Fed, for the banks. So
we sit here 10 years later
in America.
And the fact, and even like we said, raising the minimum wage would still help people today, right? Like if they were to actually do it,
it's great
they don't want to say like, hey, they shouldn't do it because fuck it now. Because I'm not interested.
No, it's great.
No, they should still do it.
But a big difference for people.
But if it, shouldn't we be raising it to $25 an hour, $30 an hour? At this point,
it really has to go by where people live and what their, the cost of living is in different places. Really, you know what I mean? But yeah, 25 is reasonable. Definitely that would help. That would really help. I think a lot of people. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Mariah, I met Mariah because they were coming off of a campaign with Students United Against Sweatshops, which is, I believe it's a national organization, correct, Mariah?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
And so I know that they had run some, and I, seen them on social media quite a bit. Couple of what I would consider like high profile grassroots organizers out of the Rutgers community at that time. Couple that went on to other union organizing positions and things of that nature. So, and I remember we had a cup of coffee. It was myself and an organizer from Working Families at the time, who introduced us, and we sat down. And I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, wow, those young people are really fucking smart, and they're going to be a lot better at organizing than I am someday. This is, it really was an impressive conversation. And then Mariah, you got into some of the student stuff and then you moved on, but I'll let you kind of tell, where you came from and how you started to get involved in this minimum wage movement as a student.
Yeah, so I actually got involved in United Students Against Sweatshops when I was in grad school at the Rutgers Labor School. And, honestly, I always kind of joke with people whenever I'm training and stuff like that, nobody originally gets into organizing because they have these like high-minded ideals, right? I got into minimum wage organizing because I was poor. Like I had skin in the game. And I still do. So, that's what got me into it. And even after school, when I went on to the union movement and now I'm working in a homeless shelter, like it's still a very common thread through everything I'm doing.
You did. So let me ask you, you were involved with some of the student worker movements in particular. Was it food service workers that you mainly kind of organized around, but you actually got involved more with the, you were getting involved with workers side of it, right?
Yeah. So whenever I first joined, they were like halfway through an anti-sweatshop campaign against Nike on campus. And then after we won that, that's whenever we started laying the foundation for a fight for 15. it ended up, the campaign ended up continuing even after I graduated, and they did end up combining with, because all the other contracts at Rutgers came up at the same time, so they did like bargaining for the common good, and ended up getting, it was 12 or 13, not 15, but close.
Yeah, hey, it's an increase. That's great. Pat, when did you start with 15 now? Were you at the very, very early meetings in New Jersey, or did you come along after we had gotten started for a little while? I don't even.
I don't think I was at the first meeting, but I was in some of the early meetings, you know what I mean? And then, so it was early. I don't remember what year it was, you know. It was in between, you know, our 2011 Verizon strike and our 2016 Verizon. I think it was like 2012 maybe or something like that, so.
Yeah.
I remember being at Rutgers and, you know, going down to New Brunswick for meetings and stuff like that. So
yeah, 15 Now New Jersey was born at Rutgers in the AFT building. We had a meeting in
that's
the
actually
basement.
where I remember. I was there a couple meetings there. So
yeah, that was well. If you were at the, we did have a couple of meetings there, but I know we had the inaugural meeting there, and I could tell
I came to that. I was at that actually.
There you go. So you were at the very, very first meeting, and that was it. Was and I can tell you all, it was the Green Party. It was Food and Water Watch.
Food and Water Watch was there. Yes, I remember.
I think UFCW might have sent some spies that never just filled their leaders.
Yeah, they were there. They were definitely there. Yes,
they did. No, I'm sorry. They did help later down the road. I don't make fun. They did help.
They were definitely there. I remember talking because one of my fellow workers in the IWW is in the UFCW, and he doesn't think a lot of the union leadership. So anyway, I remember when I was talking to the guy, I was like, I wonder which one this guy is. You know what I mean?
I'll speak to what I know.
Hey, Bob, I talked to this guy. What's he like? You know.
I mean, I'm past it now. I'm not getting back into those jobs, so I figure out, you know, I'll speak to what I know, and I'll trash the people that I you know can trash by telling the truth. That's it. I won't go be above me, but I will say for those of you out there in the world who are not involved with New Jersey politics or labor, it's filthy, scummy, mob-driven shit is what it is. It's all it is. It's just mobsters and douchebags and kids of mobsters fucking up your life. That's all it is. And so, you know, when the union and, you know, when the union members themselves start to take hold of their union and take on some of these basically unchallenged presidents, things will change. Just like anything else. And I see the union movement and the 15 Now movement and these kind of these things that, you know, are pretty fucked up right now. As all having that solution of workers becoming engaged, right? Of people becoming engaged in your political system, but also becoming engaged in your union, man. I mean, like union membership, it not only is it down, but it's beaten down. But it, you know, it's not alive. It doesn't support its leadership like you'd think. And I think when you hear the narrative, you know, on TV, oh, Joe Biden's meeting with union leaders. You know, Joe Biden's got, you know, all these, you know, union people, you know, around him, and he's showing them more respect. That doesn't necessarily translate into respect for the membership. It may mean a new boat for the union leader.
Yeah. Or at least a new limo anyway, you know what I mean? Or a better, you know, limo ride, you know what I mean? So.
You know, there you go. Jimmy's, I've been a member of UFCW Local 1262 for 21 years. If I didn't know any better, I would think unions suck.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
I don't know.
That's one of the, the UFCW, in my opinion, is one of the least good unions, you know what I mean, in New Jersey anyway. So, you know, I don't know.
Well,
they're all pretty bad, but some are worse than others, you know, so.
A big issue that I've seen, you know, since I've graduated and have been working in unions in various states, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, there's a big issue in not making training available. Like the education that I got at the labor school, like nobody makes that available. Nobody teaches union members basic labor law. Nobody teaches union members how to read a contract.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I want you to know that.
Right.
I developed training for CWA. They fired me.
Like I went,
and they went back to supporting Steve Sweeney.
Leadership Academy and took both the night classes and the labor law classes during the day. I actually took off I was taking off vacation days and going to learn about the stuff because I was into it. You know what I mean? And so, I got it. I got the education, but nobody else in my union really did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
We were supposed to talk about the $15 an hour movement, but I like this conversation about unions because it's in my wheelhouse and my PTSD starts to kick in. I get excited. So, I mean, but I mean, I think the important bringing it back home is though the union's influence into the $15 an hour minimum wage movement, I think was, it was a direct impact on the fact that we don't have the policy now because unions are so disorganized, right? So the unions will hop from politician to politician to election, just like any other a roulette wheel, right? So they make their best bet on who's going to win an election. They don't make unsafe bets, and then whoever gets into office owes them favors because they gave them money. I mean, it is playing the political system, and all these unions now have PACs. Just so people know, when that horrible Citizens United law passed, allowing corporations to dump as much money, it did allow unions to form PACs, but they don't have as much money. I mean, technically they can dump as much money, and they don't have as much money, so it's not fair. But they started forming these PACs, so now unions are run basically to fund these PACs in a political operation instead of, as Mariah was pointing out, training people. And I can even tell you, when I wanted to focus, and try to get training done, I was taking off task many, many times for other duties, and I think that the key is members back to the impact on the $15 an hour minimum wage movement. Like I said, has led to this kind of drawn out process because they didn't build a movement around it. Right? It was everybody taking off in their own directions and trying to pull it in their own. And it didn't become this cohesive movement. Mariah, I want to ask you, like, you've seen a lot of movements in your time. I mean, you've seen a lot, and you can kind of judge organizing really. I mean, when you see something on TV like the Women's March, the kind of work and the groups that go into stuff behind something of that scale, right? As opposed to organizing a smaller protest outside the dean's office, of students getting for, cheaper lunches or something like that. So there is kind of like this. Why didn't $15 an hour turn into that massive scale organizing? Why?
So I mean, off the top of my head, my first gut reaction is that I don't think unions do a good enough job of thinking of workers as a whole. They're very siloed. So to kind of balance it out a little bit, the last union I was working for, it was a Unite Here joint board. They did a great job. So I came in right in the middle of bargaining in one of my casinos. They did a great job in that casino of raising the floor for everybody and getting and making sure that the lowest paid workers were bargained up as close to $15 as they could get them. They did a great job with that. But I really think as a whole, the union movement doesn't do a good job in thinking of themselves as, part of the working class. They think of themselves as a union, not as, we are workers. It's the same issue with Medicare for All, right? So Medicare for All would help, people in fast food that don't have a union. But unions are so focused on we have this good union healthcare plan and we have to bargain to keep this good union healthcare plan. So my first now that I'm talking about it more, I feel really strongly about it. Unions don't think of themselves as part of a class. There's no class solidarity with ununionized workers.
Yeah, I agree. And we have to, and you mentioned, medical and why we don't see Medicare for All is another issue. You also have to consider many unions still run medical plans and they have employees on the payroll that are getting paid. So, they're looking at a major in their business model gets collapsed. Now that has to be considered. Now you don't want unions to go under as a result of medical care and stuff like that. So it's definitely, but I don't think it should be prohibitive to caring for our society because on a grander scale.
Yeah, my previous supervisor, the woman that I worked under while I was at Unite Here, I mean, she's amazing. She's gone on to a really great political career as a campaign manager. she was saying that like unions still operate within the framework of capitalism. Unions are still constrained by capitalism.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Wagner Act, to me, which is like the centerpiece and something you study as what, made unions legal. And there were pieces of it that were good, I guess, but overall was a giant compromise to, it was just like the rest of the New Deal to keep capitalism alive. It was part of Social Security, the Wagner Act. And it was also the first part of the New Deal that they got rid of in 1947. I mean, as soon as they could, they tore it down to the Taft-Hartley, and it's gotten
Taft-Hartley made it even worse. It was bad
and
enough to begin with, and then Taft-Hartley just totally like took the legs out. And then they threw all the communists and socialists out of the unions in the 50s. And those were the people who organized the CIO and organized all these people. And then we just got union bosses like George Meany, or what the heck that guy's name was. Oh my God.
And Andy Stern, and that led to Andy Stern, the great
Stern, and even
who's
Trump,
now on who's now in a non-union nonprofit making $1 million a year. I mean, that's our movement, and that's what was behind the $15 an hour minimum wage, and that's why we are where we are. And I think Mariah brings up that point of class solidarity, and why I have even moved past the wage system, because I just don't want to see these kinds of issues become just basically political soccer game. Just let's kick it around the middle of the field and we'll score 1 or 3 points the game, and that's that. We'll all go home.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what it's become, rather than we get some votes for Phil Murphy, then we'll pass,
and then they don't deliver. That's the Democrats' MO, man. That's what they do. They talk about stuff like they're progressive or pro-worker economic, and then they bring virtually nothing to the table.
Does the public see what I say? Does the public see what we see at this point?
Yes.
Mariah, does the general public, or are they still rooting for a $15 an hour minimum wage like it actually means like a big deal?
So I would say that most people my age, I'm in my late 20s, very, very firmly in that millennial age bracket. I would say that most people I know and talk to, even if they're not in the labor movement, are still into the idea of like $15 an hour minimum wage, Medicare for all. So I would say it's not dead.
Do people view it as, and not dead, but I mean, what I'm asking, like, I have this kind of cynical overview of it where I'm like, they just use it for, is the public, like, Joe Biden didn't make, I mean, some of the progressives made a big deal out of it, but Joe Biden didn't make a big deal out of it. He didn't want to overrule a parliamentarian. So it's still not even caught on at the top of the party, other than a little bit of lip service. Well, so I mean, are people have moved on to other topics. Black Lives Matter has erupted. Medicare for all is more the Green New Deal. It almost seems to me like 15 now is a thing of the past, but we never got there.
We never got it.
You're supposed to move on after you get it. It's like we were like, well,
the places they passed laws, we're still waiting to get to 15 in vast majority of them, right? I mean, it's like, because they stretched it out like 4 or 6 years, whatever the heck it was. So
I don't know anybody that was that excited about Joe Biden to begin with. The meme.
Uncle Joe, he's like, he's the man.
Point.
There was a meme that was like, I laughed so hard. It was like, "Are you okay, Joe? You haven't even touched your campaign promises."
That's great.
So I mean, like, I don't think that anybody was anticipating that like Joe Biden was going to come in and
no,
give us $15 and give us $2,000 in checks, and like I don't think anybody thought that was going to happen.
I'm actually quite surprised we got 1,400. I gotta say, I was Christian Perez of Modernity and Absurdity and NJR Live. He won the Biden check pool. He hit it. He said 1,400. I was surprised. I was thinking in the neighborhood of 1,000 or 12. I really thought they were gonna bring it down a few more. But I'll give him credit for living up to his word. The 47th time he changed it. He finally said something and stuck to it after a lot of tries.
But I still want to see him do push-ups with that guy that he got into the fight with out in the Midwest there. I want to see that push-up contest between him and that guy. Still waiting for that, man. That would be great.
Well, like also, you know, we like we the royal we, I guess, have a duty to not let this die, right? Like,
Yeah.
Personally, I don't organize for 15 anymore. I mean, I've created like 4 or 5 organizations since then. I mean, I had a job. I had a whole career get ruined. I mean, I don't know that we've all kind of, the way I look at the positive aspect I look at it from my angle is much like Occupy, much like the Wisconsin uprisings, much like the Battle of Seattle. Like it didn't have the immediate revolution spring out, but those revolutionaries involved went on to things and with lessons learned and had a multiplier effect. And I look at you, Mariah, who moved on and had a career organizing and is still involved in wonderful social work. Pat, who I've continued to organize with on various projects, including here at Revolution Radio. I know other organizers like Ginger, who moved on. She's a union organizer. So there was experience and life lived there that was valuable. But the overall impact of, when I look at the policy today.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the importance of what we call class struggle in some segments, that it teaches people, to fight and to see the world in a way that makes capitalism's contradictions and problems really clear. And then they keep, if they understand that, then they stay in the struggle. Even if they lose a particular, issue, they stay in the struggle in the long term and fight for a better society, which, we all hope we need. We absolutely need. We better get one soon, or things are going to get a lot worse. So
I get what you guys are saying, and it's really good to contextualize it and lessons learned and all this, and like we're organizers, like we're great at debriefing. Like a flip chart, right? Everybody gets a flip chart, and you like do your pluses and your deltas, and no, is that just an?
Nah, I smoke a joint, crack a beer, and bitch about capital. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm sorry. Complain about capitalism.
Absolutely correct.
Anyway, let me keep going. Like you do all that, and you debrief and you learn all this, but that doesn't change the fact that most of the people in my shelter, I manage a homeless shelter now, by the way, for the audience.
Amazing work, amazing.
The people in my shelter, most of them work. Most of them work, and they're still in shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, there's still, like this is still life and death.
We need wealth redistribution really bad in this country, really bad. At least, I think we need to take power completely. But I mean, that's another story which I don't want to talk about anymore on the internet. But you know what I mean.
Like, I work in a family shelter. Like you guys were talking about child poverty.
Family shelter, yes.
Yeah,
that's horrible.
I work with kids.
That's horrible.
So
horrible.
If
in the richest nation the world has ever known.
Right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous.
A $15 an hour minimum wage would have concrete impacts for the people that I get up and serve every day.
Absolutely.
It's past. I mean, I guess why I'm not as engaged as I used to be is because it's past time for it. It's past time for it. We are so far into this thing, and the fight is so long. We should have done this a long time ago. And I guess what I wanted, and we are running up on time here, but we do have. So I wanted to ask one more question, and then we can close out. But I did want to ask, like, if we have a chance to revive this thing because of the latest hubbub with the whole, a stimulus passing without it, how should it be revived? I mean, should it really be revived as a $15 an hour minimum wage, or shouldn't we really sit down and, like you said, let's debrief. Let's rethink this. Is it about a minimum wage? Is it about the PRO Act? Is it about, full automated luxury communism? I mean, where do we go as far as the demand in 2021? Because it's not 2011 again.
It should be so. I thought a lot about this. I'm from Ed Markey territory, and I do think that it would be a good thing to do in conjunction with, say, a Green New Deal, because the Green New Deal has a jobs guarantee. So Yeah, so there should be something like a jobs guarantee. There should be, and that should go along with the minimum wage. It should be more than $15 an hour. Jimmy's right. It needs to be coupled with basic income.
Or living wage jobs for all, or
Right.
living wage jobs for everyone. Everyone in our society, the richest society in the history of the planet, that spends 66 cents on the dollar on bombs to blow up people all over the world, should have a living wage for everybody here. And we got to stop dropping bombs on people too to make that happen, which is really a good thing to do too. So.
And I mean, even if we couple it with basic income, I've seen all sorts of things like, whenever they've done basic income, like people have still chosen to work, and the only people that really don't work are like the disabled or, students or like parents or like people that can't. So, couple it with basic income, couple it with a jobs guarantee, make it higher than 15. It should really be like Thrive for 25 at this point.
Shout out to your boy. Can you shout out to your man who wants that?
I like that. Thrive for 25. That's good.
Thrive for 25. Get 30 for 30. Nah, that doesn't work.
30's better. 30's better. And in most states you need 30, Depends on where you live.
It's gotta have a snappy slogan though, or else
In Massachusetts, if you're living by yourself, if you're renting your own apartment, that $1,400 pays for 1 month of rent in a studio apartment.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's where there's a lot of places, man.
It's a crazy economy we have going. We are about out of time, so I want to give everybody a chance though to say goodbye and get your last minute thoughts in before we take off. But I want to thank you both for being here. It was a nice little blast from the past. I did walk down memory lane, getting ready for the show, and I do think, like I said, I am cynical about the outcome, and I do hope that workers in this country see more rewards from their work, and not just in the way of money, but in respect and quality of life overall. But before we go, I want to give you guys a chance to say some last minute thoughts. And what are you doing today? If you're organizing anything, how we can support your work, Mariah? Anything before we go?
I'm kind of in between stuff right now. So I'm just happy to be here, and I'm glad you brought me on.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being a member of our editorial board. You were one of the earliest supporters. So, you've been a awesome member, and I know that, there's more great things to come. Pat, another member of our editorial board. Anything before we close out the show?
Thrive for 25 sounds like a good new goal, or living wage for all, whatever we want to call it. That's a good slogan, and power to the working class. That's what we really need. Workers' power, man.
That's right. Pat told me, I think that was your favorite chant, and now it's my favorite chant. And it has been, and I probably learned it on the 15 Now campaign. Kick the bosses in the ass, power to the working class. I mean,
people love that one. That's a great one. That's
Hell
one of
yeah.
my favorites.
I said I don't get to many rallies, of course, over the last couple of years.
That's a good one, man.
But
everybody likes that. The right wingers like it. The liberals like it. Everybody likes that one. That's a good slogan. So.
Jimmy Brash, you got to come on and do a show with us. He's commenting on the stream so much. But Jimmy's been a union member, another editorial board member. So the editorial board's out in force tonight. Thank you for being on the stream. Thank you for
thanks
supporting
for your comments that you made. Your
there you go.
They were really good. I forgot what they called them, but comments are.
Yep. All right. So thanks a lot, Pat. Thanks a lot, Mariah. We'll see you soon. Those of you out there watching Revolution Radio, listening to us on a podcast, please go to www.njrevolutionradio.com. That's like new journalism, njrevolutionradio.com, and make a contribution. Check out all our other podcasts. There's some blogs out there. There's all kinds of content for you to absorb and learn and participate in. So check us out. On Monday night, again, we're going to have a special episode with Dr. Letitia Sampson and our professor of political science, Christian Perez, to talk about the American political cult, its history, its characteristics, and a little bit deeper into things like QAnon, because there's more groups out there, and believe it or not, they get even weirder. All right, so that's going to be Monday night at 8 p.m. Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We have the Ida Vox Report with Daryl Lamont Jenkins, and next Wednesday at 8 p.m. you will be here again for NJR Live, but that will be with Christian Perez, your monthly substitute host when I take my week off. I like my week off. I hang out with the Big Sarge over here. We're going to smoke our stimmy weed, and we're going to have a nice time. Thanks a lot, everybody. And just remember that the police can quit their jobs. Peace.
Thrown against the car, handcuffed, and that's what happened last night.
The police kicked in the door, shot him twice in the chest, and he died.
Before you knew it, we had 500 families. We had over 100 volunteers calling us. We were on the phone constantly.
And I can't get, and I got one police department telling me they don't know who's in charge. I got another police department here. Everybody's got a gun, and nobody knows who's in charge. Can anybody figure out who's in charge yet? Is there anybody in charge here? Any police officer in charge? Are you in charge? I can't find anybody in charge. That's